Hello everyone, this is Dr. Bang, and today I'm going to teach you guys the first section, which is about angles and radians measures. Okay. Radian measures. Okay. So, in this video, I'm going to teach you guys the 4 sections for this. Before we even move on into anything, the first main things we should focus on is what is an angle. Okay, so what is an angle? So I'm going to give you guys the definition of what is an angle. Okay, so for the definition, an angle is by rotating a rate. It's by rotating a rate about its endpoint. Okay. So obviously, if we're doing for the rotation for a rate, so we need to starting to doing with a little bit of rate in here, and then we rotate it by this endpoint, and that creates an angle right here. Okay, and from this rate and then the positions in here, we given some kind of names to it. So the first one is what we call the starting positions in here. It's what we call the initial signs. Okay, so we call this one, it's the initial sign. And from this part right here, the last one, what we're getting into, is what we call the terminal sign. So this one, it's called the terminal sign. So with this 2 signs, we're starting from the initial sign and then doing a little bit of rotation and get into the terminal sign, and that's when we get the angles. Okay. So for angles like this, we all obviously have 2 choices. Okay. So the first choice is if we're starting with the positions like here, and then we're going to the counterclockwise. So we're going this way. And this angle is what we call the positive angle. Okay. So the angle for this kind of case is called positive angle. For the second case, if we're going from this positions right here, but we're going for the clockwise in here, and then we're going this way, so we ends up to be in here, so that is what we call the negative angle. Okay, so if we're going for the clockwise, and that is called a negative angle. Okay, and very interesting things is we're always starting with this position as the initial sign. You can see always going that way. And what do we call that? And actually, we have a special name for this position where we always started. It's called the standard position. Okay. So this positions right here, it's what we call the standard position. And we're always starting in this point. Okay. And sometimes we will starting with a different point, but that will be not the standard position. But most likely, we'll starting with a standard position. So after we talk about the standard positions, let's take a look at what is our angle in representing it numerically. Okay, by using numbers and then to represent the angle. Okay, so first of all, what we're going to do is to represent the angles in degree. Okay, so we can write, a 30 degree, which is like somewhere in here. Okay, and we can write a 90 degree, which is horizontal, and then Then we have the perpendiculars in here, 90 degree. And we have 180 degree, which is writing in this way, 180 degree. Okay. So we have all these nice situations in here as like writing into a degree sign. Okay. And as we know, and then we're using always a beautiful, nice number. What if we have some numbers and it's not that nice and not quite nicely? Like what we have is a 64.12 degree, something like that. And how do we write this thing a little bit differently? So obviously, this is degree. And how do we write things into like minutes and seconds? So what we're going to do for this one is to write 64.12 degree in degree, minutes, and seconds. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. It's to write this, the decimal degree into minutes and seconds. Okay, so first of all, we're starting with a 64.12 degree. And what we're going to do is to equals to 64 degree plus 0.12 degree. And this 0.12 degree is the one gives us trouble. So what we're going to do is to convert this one into minutes and seconds. Okay. So what we're going to do is to multiply the 0.12 by 60 minutes. The minute, we just put a dot on the sides and here, and that creates the minute. If you multiply this one together, and then you will get 64 degree plus 7.2 minutes. Okay, and obviously, after we do this one, we still end up with a decimal. And how do we eliminate that? We're using the same kind of strategy. So what we do is just 64 degree plus 7 minutes, and then plus 0.2 multiplied by 60 seconds. Okay, so multiply by the 60 seconds right there, and that ends up to be 64 degree plus 7 minutes plus 12 seconds. Okay. And finally, we just rewrite the whole things together, and we get 64 degree, 7 minutes, 12 seconds. Okay. And that is our final answer to write our decimal points. Okay. So that is the way. So after we have done all these nice things in here, let's talk about how to find a relationships between two different angles. Okay, as we know from the structure of an angle, we're always starting with a nice initial signs. And then we end up to be something, it's what we call the terminal sign. So it ends up with the terminal signs in here. And the way how we create it from here to here, it's the angle. Okay, so that is the angle. But another way, if we think outside the box in here, we can also create something like that by doing a little bit more of rotation. What do I mean for that? It's if I'm starting the same initial sign, and then I rotate it a full circle and then back into the same terminal sign. If you look at this one here, the two angles right here share exactly the same as the initial sign and terminal signs. Okay. For this kind of situations in here, we have another angle right here. For those two different angles right here, it's what we call them coterminal. Okay, so we call them the coterminal. If they share exactly the same of initial signs and the terminal sign, we call them coterminal. Okay? So a very nice examples in here would be if we're starting as a 30 degree. Okay, so we're starting with a 30 degree, and then we do a full side rotation, then get back to the same degrees in here. But this one, what we have is we do the whole circle rotation, which is a 360 degree, and then plus the extra 30 degrees we also rotated, so it ends up to be 390 degree. And this 390 degree and the 30 degree are coterminal. So they are coterminal of each other. Okay, so that is what the relationship of coterminal. And on top of that, and there is two more relationship I want to share with you guys. The first one is if you have a 90 degree, okay, and if you break it into two, so the first one in here goes this way, it's what we call the alpha, and the alphas in here, it's normally a Greek letter we use to represent the angles and then to represent some letters, and then it's just a variable and it's a letter, so you don't have to be scared of that. The second one, as you hear, and then we go from the rest of the 90 degree, and we get a beta. Okay. So as you can see in here, the alpha and beta are actually sharing the entire 90 degree. So we know alpha plus beta is equals to 90 degrees. And this kind of relationships in here is what we call the complement. Okay. So this kind of relationship is what we call the complement. And very nice example to tell you this one is if you are starting with alpha equals to 39 degree, and it will be easy to find the beta by using 90 degree subtracting the 39 degree, which is alpha, then you get 51 degree. Okay. So that is how you're finding the complement of the angle. Okay. The second one is we're going to extend the angle a little bit bigger so that it's turned out to be 180 degree. And we cut this out a bit, and then we have this angles right here. It's alpha, okay? And the rest of this part, it's the beta, okay? So if they share this 180 degree, so obviously they added together will be equals to 180 degree, okay? So if they add it together as 180 degree, this kind of relationship is what we call supplement. Okay, so this one is called supplement. Okay, and the examples for this one could be we're starting with alpha equals to 165 degree. Okay, and to find out beta, as what we did it before, but instead of 90 degree, we're doing for the 180 degree. So that's 180 degree, subtracting 165 from alpha, and then we got 15 degree. It's for the beta. Okay. So that is how we find out the relationship of the two different angles. So there's a coterminals in here, there is a complements in here, and there's a supplements in here. So all the three relationships, it's very special in this case. Okay. So that is basically all the ideas you needed to know for doing an angle with their relationships and degrees. And obviously,